It's great to welcome to the program today Jefferson Morley, who is an author, editor of the blog JFK Facts, and editor of the Deep States website. His next book is called Scorpion's Dance: The President, the Spy Master, and Watergate. It's great to have you on, Jefferson. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, David.
So the presidents for some time have opted not to release the so-called JFK papers. There was initially quite a long delay put in place in terms of releasing them to the public. Donald Trump and Joe Biden have taken positions on that have led to significant speculation about what may be in these files and these papers. There are a number of what we might colloquially call conspiracy theories that exist around the murder of JFK, as I'm sure you know, and the issue of the files has only fed that. Talk to us about what do we know about these files, and what are the reasons, at least as stated, as to their being kept private.
Okay, thank you, David. Let's step back and just look at what the law says. That it's a little complicated, so it's worth explaining to understand how we've gotten to this moment.
Yes.
So in 1992, Oliver Stone released his movie JFK, which was with an A-list Hollywood cast, a very smart screenplay, a very compelling piece of cinema, portrayed Kennedy's assassination as the work of a high-level conspiracy. This triggered outrage in Washington, indignation, severe attacks on Oliver Stone, which continue to this day, saying he had taken liberties with history and all of that. Stone responded with a very effective response, which is, if the government isn't hiding anything, why is it hiding so much? And he pointed out that in 1992, nearly 30 years after the assassination of the president, 80% of the government's records on the subject were entirely classified. He put that in the trailer at the end of the movie, and he said, if you're upset about this, call your congressman. And so that resulted in a flood of mail to Capitol Hill, and Congress actually did the right thing. They said, we're going to release all these records to quell all this speculation. And so they passed a very strong law called the JFK Records Act. It passed unanimously. Imagine that, David, unanimously, something that would never happen in today's political environment. But pretty much everybody across the political spectrum agreed all JFK records should be made public. And so the law created an independent board to go and ask government agencies for their records. The board reviewed them and released them publicly. The agencies, the CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon, they had the right to request the delay of the release of certain materials based on their concerns about national security, privacy, and all of that. So that was a very effective law. And in the 1990s, we got a huge batch of new records about the JFK assassination, which really changed understanding, deepened our understanding of what exactly happened on November 22nd, 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated. And these records illuminated a couple of things that were not known before: just how much the CIA knew about Lee Harvey Oswald, CIA propaganda operations around Oswald, both before and after the assassination. So we learned a lot from those materials. After 25 years, everything was supposed to be made public. Congress wrote in a sunset provision. After 25 years, the agencies have the right to delay release of information, but they can't postpone it forever. And after 25 years, everything should be made public. So 1992, you go fast forward 25 years, October 2017, the final release of JFK records falls to Donald Trump. Trump goes on Twitter and says, all JFK files have been released ahead of time. Okay. Not surprisingly, that statement was false. All the JFK records were not released, and they were not released ahead of time. When the dust cleared and we figured out what had happened, what had happened was Mike Pompeo, CIA director, went to Trump and said, we cannot possibly release all of these records. And Christopher Wray from the FBI said the same thing. And so they prevailed on Trump to continue to delay the release of this material, which by law was supposed to become public, for another 4 years. So we have some idea what's in those records. a lot of those records have been declassified, maybe except for a word or a paragraph. So we know something about what's in these records. 4 years later, the decision falls to Joe Biden last month. And late on the night of October 22nd, Biden, the White House announced that nothing would be released this year. The second time that the deadline written into the law, approved unanimously by Congress, for the second time, the federal agencies blew the deadline.
Right. And there. Oh, sorry. We kind of lost connection with there for a second.
But all the records that remain.
Yeah, Jefferson, your connection kind of went in and out there. Your connection went in and out there, and so we got 99% of what you said there. Let me sort of frame up my next question here. The speculation, of course, is that the full release, unredacted of everything, would tell us the truth about the assassination itself, whereas more measured perspectives are, well, there's potentially stuff in these documents related to, for example, Operation Northwoods or other things that don't really relate to the assassination itself. What do you believe is still unknown, so to speak?
Well, I think what we learned from the disclosures in the 1990s is that the official story that some guy came out of nowhere and shot the president for no reason, that story's false. Lee Harvey Oswald, the man accused of doing the killing, was very, very well known at the upper ranks of the CIA. So in my perspective, some people say, and people, it's a plausible argument, it's a fair argument, that they're hiding all of this stuff, but there's nothing really important in there, nothing really germane to the assassination itself.
Right.
Okay. That's a plausible argument, but I don't believe it for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
One, if you look at how much was hidden before now, the agencies lose the presumption of innocence because every step before this, secrecy has hidden highly significant information. So to say the last round of secrecy does not involve highly significant information, of course it's possible. I haven't seen the records. But based on the past history, I don't think that that's warranted. Okay. The second thing is that these records could, I'm not going to say they're going to rearrange our understanding of the assassination. People have deeply felt beliefs about the assassination and may not change their mind no matter what the evidence. But I think that there is evidence that will change, decisively clarify, I guess I would put it that way. So, for example, what do I think is in there? I think is evidence that shows that a certain group of CIA officers targeted Lee Harvey Oswald for operational purposes before the assassination. And if that's true, that could well be part of a conspiracy to kill the president. So I think that will it show, what happened in Dealey Plaza? These records will not shed new light on what happened in Dealey Plaza. What they will shed new light on is what the CIA knew about the accused assassin and the circumstances of the assassination before and after Kennedy was killed. That's where we see evidence of malfeasance or misconduct. And that's what these records could decisively show.
Okay, so let's explore that a little bit. So one very black and white story that some tell is the CIA ran an operation, directed Lee Harvey Oswald to assassinate John F. Kennedy. Okay, that's one story. What you're suggesting seems to be, it could be that Lee Harvey Oswald was not only known to the CIA, but was actually previously used by the CIA in certain operations not having to do with the assassination. Maybe the CIA even was aware that Lee Harvey Oswald maybe wanted to kill the president. I'm sort of just speculating here. And maybe the CIA didn't stop him or something. But you're not necessarily saying it's a directed assassination.
Well, I haven't seen the record, so
no,
I
understand.
know.
I understand. Yeah.
What you're saying is possible. That what they're hiding is they're hiding incompetence.
Sure.
They're not hiding incriminating information.
Right.
Okay. I think that's possible. Again, I doubt it. Because first of all, if that was the feeling inside the CIA, like, oh, we screwed up, we missed this guy, we should have, we could have, you might see some trace of that mentality in the records. Okay. There is no evidence to confirm that in the available record, that's why they are doing what they are doing. So that's one reason why I doubt it. Nobody in the CIA has ever said, oh, we screwed up about Oswald. If you look at their behavior, it is much more consistent with, this guy is part of a covert operation that we cannot talk about. And so what I'm saying is, I think there's an undisclosed CIA operation around Oswald whose purposes we don't know, and whose purposes the CIA does not want to disclose. From there, if that's true, we will have a better understanding of how to assess the conspiracy question. So you're right. I'm not jumping to conspiratorial conclusion, because I have not seen the records. The CIA has seen the records. The thing is true. If they wanted to exonerate themselves, if they said, we screwed up, right? We weren't guilty of anything negative about the president, but we did screw up in a certain way. They're free to say that. But David, when they've blown the deadline twice, my strong impression is they do not want to comply with the law. There's a law about the assassination of the President of the United States, and they don't want to comply with it. So what does that tell you? That tells you, I think, that we need to be skeptical about exonatory or exonerating the CIA before we see all the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I can really see it both ways, because even if it is mere incompetence, from everything I know about the CIA and American intelligence agencies, it is plausible to me that even if it's incompetence and not incriminating, that they would go to any length in order to hide that. I mean, that to me, that motive alone to me does not necessarily put me in the same mindset that it sounds like maybe you're in on it.
Well, I go back to what I said before. I don't see any sign of specific individuals in the CIA having that reaction to the story so far.
Yeah.
And certainly no CIA spokesman has come forward and said, that's the case. So we need to see the records to decide exactly this point that we're on. Is a more negative, skeptical interpretation warranted, or is there another one? That's the question that's raised by the evidence.
Last thing I wanted to ask about, there's a passage, this Operation Northwoods that's sort of wrapped up in all of this. My understanding is that Operation Northwoods was the idea of an operation to create false flag attacks against the United States to justify aggression towards Cuba, and that it is an operation that was never actually enacted from everything that I've been able to read. Is my understanding accurate, and how might it relate to all of these files?
Yeah, so just to rehearse very quickly, Operation Northwoods was a plan approved by the Pentagon in May 1963 designed to provoke a war with Cuba. And the idea was stage a spectacular attack in the United States, blame it on Cuba, and then the United States would have the justification. You say there is no evidence that Operation Northwoods was ever implemented. That's true, although the record of Operation of Northwoods is incomplete. So let's say that, first of all. Second of all, the CIA has never said that it was never implemented. The CIA's in-house historian said that on a blog. It was not an official statement of the agency. That's the second point.
Okay.
And the third
we just lost you again there.
And the third point is...
Sorry, Jefferson, I hate to interrupt.
Operation Northwoods...
Your connection failed on the third point. Tell us the third point again.
Right, okay. And the third point is Operation Northwoods was approved unanimously by the Joint Chiefs of Staff on May 1st, 1963. So my point is the idea that the way to liberate Cuba was to stage a spectacular crime in the United States and blame it on Cuba was very common at the upper levels of the CIA and the Pentagon. Was Northwoods ever put into practice on November 22nd? No, there's no record of that. But that mentality, that corrupt, anti-democratic mentality was pervasive at the upper levels of the Pentagon and the CIA in November 1963. And I believe that Operation Northwoods is the template. It might not have been the official form, but is the template of what happened in Dealey Plaza. Stage a spectacular crime and blame it on Cuba.
Do you believe that we'll ever have sort of like full satisfaction on this, where
Well, yeah,
everybody's satisfied that we know what took place?
no, I don't think that, but I do think that big changes in opinion and common are possible. You go to waves of historical revisionism. 50 years ago, if you'd said Thomas Jefferson had a relationship with his, one of his slaves and, and had children with her, people would have said, that's a ridiculous anti-American rumor. 50 years later, most historians agree that public opinion on a big historical question can change over time. And I think, no, not everybody's not going to be satisfied. But I think when we get the rest of these records, we will have a clearer understanding of what led to President Kennedy's death. I do believe that.
We have been speaking with Jefferson Morley. His next book is Scorpion's Dance, The President, the Spy Master, and Watergate. Great speaking to you. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, David. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.